In light of recent sporting news, the GOAT talk has been running rampant throughout NBA sports. That's dumb. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Wayne Stephen with Next Level Lifestyle. Listen, in light of recent sporting news, GOAT talk has been running rampant throughout the NBA. If you don't know what GOAT is, you're just a novice who doesn't know sports. GOAT means greatest of all time. So, I got my MJ jersey on today, obviously for a reason. Michael Jordan is regarded largely as the greatest of all time. And I'm not really going to argue that, more than I'm going to ask a question. Is MJ really the GOAT? And the reason I ask that is because when they GOAT talk him with LeBron, and they put the measuring stick up, and they go, see, MJ has 6 titles, no NBA Finals losses. LeBron, he has 3 titles, and he's lost in the finals such and such times. But then you got Stephen A. Smith, and he's like, LeBron has gone to the finals 8 or 9 times in a row. I don't do a good Stephen A. impression. You get it. I heard it in my head. You know what I was trying to do. Anyways, so me being that guy, because I am that guy. I'm that guy that likes to call people on their shenanigans, especially when I feel like they just riding the wave or jumping on a bandwagon, or they're just doing very minimal history and they don't give the same criteria across the board for some of their favorites. I asked myself, I said, if we're gonna do the whole Michael has 6, LeBron has 3, how come we not going Bill Russell has 11 and Michael has 6? How come we not doing that? Bill Russell, largely regarded as one of the best centers to ever play the game. But the biggest knock against his success, dig this, the biggest knock against his success is because he got most of it when the NBA wasn't as diverse. Fine. Let's think about it like this. Bill Russell once grabbed 51 rebounds in a game, even if it was against all white guys. At that time, the best player on the floor was typically the big man. So he's grabbing rebounds over the best players on the team routinely. Stick with me, because I'm going somewhere with this. But yet it's like, they was white and unathletic, and Bill Russell was a unicorn at that time. I don't know who that voice is that I'm doing. I think that's Mr. Woke Man. I make fun of Mr. Woke Man all the time, and I think that's my stay woke yeah, that is. It is. It's my stay woke brother voice. But that's him telling me about basketball, because I'm not woke enough to know about basketball either. But anyways, so now let's go to Mike. Do y'all not remember those early Mike highlights when he was dunking over Kelly Tripucka, Jack Sikma, and all the rest of the white dudes that ran rampant in the NBA when he first came in? MJ was a unicorn at that time, in the league at that time. The way that the league was set up, and this is going to be proven by Michael Jordan's draft position, by the way, for all you people who like to hypocrite it up and try to ignore the obvious facts. The league at that time was a big man's league. They were drafting big men left and right. I don't remember who the first and second, I don't remember who the second pick was, but the first pick in Jordan's draft was Sam Bowie, who turned out to be super duper trash. His career was garbage. You know, he might have made some money. Maybe he owns a car dealership where he's from, and he's living a decent life. But nobody's talking about him as one of the best big men in the game. Saying that to say, it was a big man's league. No 2 guards. Here's the other part. Night in, night out. Still, the best player on the floor at any given time was MJ. Remove him, it was the big man. So there, night in, night out, Michael Jordan was not guarded by the best player on the floor. I looked at his 1991 91, 92 stats. There was only one other two guard in the top 20 in scoring. Top 20. Only one other two guard, and it was Clyde Drexler. I looked a couple of years ahead, Mitch Richmond. So again, night in, night out, Michael Jordan was not competing against the best two guards in the league. He was slicing and dicing past less athletic, less gifted, less defensive-minded players to get to the hole to some unwitting big man with a mullet and get dunked on. Sometimes it was Patrick Ewing. He didn't have a mullet. He had this weird flat top that made his head look extra huge. I guess he thought if his head looked huge, nobody would try to dunk on him. He was wrong. He was in Michael Jordan posters left and right. But nobody brings that nuance up. People always say, oh, you see how he was dominating the league? It's because the league was wide open to be dominated. It was being dominated by small forwards, power forwards, and centers. If you look, go do your homework. I Googled this before I recorded it, so I know what I'm talking about. Now, first of all, let's talk about 11 championships. That's a lot. Everybody always talks about, oh, one for the thumb. How about one for the thumb and then some? Bill Russell might as well have been the first. His name might as well have been Bill Thanos, because he had an infinity glove worth of rings on at the end of his career. So he had 2 infinity gloves, as a matter of fact. He could be like, ching, ching, ching. He could have clapped the whole universe out of existence if we're doing Marvel. Of course, I know that that's not feasible. I get it. Just stick with me on the illustrations. You know what I'm saying? I like to use hyperbole a lot to make things fun. Now, let's talk about MJ's 6 championships, shall we? When he finally did make it past the Pistons, because I just recently watched a documentary, they left one little fun fact out when they talked about how he finally made it over the hump of beating the Pistons. When they said, oh, year after year, MJ was vanquished by the bad boys of Detroit. Okay, then they showed this little montage, Mike lifting weights, Mike taking extra shots, Mike getting passes, set picks, all this. So they're like, oh, well, that was the thing that did it. No, it wasn't. What happened was Rick Mahorn was sent to the Sixers in that year that Mike finally got over the hump and beat the Pistons. Rick Mahorn was the hub of that bad boy defense that just terrorized Mike and Scotty. Like, they terrorized them. Rick Mahorn gone, made their interior defense a little softer. Yeah, it was still tough, but they weren't the bad boys anymore. Again, I Google things, I watch things. I'm not somebody that just runs his mouth just because I feel like talking about a topic. Look it up. Now, that first championship against the Lakers, please, let's not pretend like we were getting Showtime magic. We wasn't getting that magic. We was getting hobbled magic. I think he probably had AIDS magic. Vlade Divac was a rookie at that time. I think they was rocking with Orlando Woolridge at the time at the power forward position. Sam Perkins, who, I mean, his jump shot was flat-footed. So that lets you know the level of his athleticism. That was an aging team. James Worthy, the whole thing. Byron Scott, the whole thing. I think Byron Scott was actually nursing an injury that year when they made it to the finals. And I also want to talk about something as far as that Western Conference is concerned. That Western Conference is not your grandson's Western Conference. It's not the Western Conference that's real top heavy, where the first 3 in the Western Conference are like 15 games ahead of the next 5 that can make the playoffs. It wasn't like that. It was way closer. We're talking about 1.5 games, 2.5 games, maybe 3 games apart between 1 and 6. And then you had some bottom feeders sometimes. But the league overall was largely competitive. But that Western Conference, because I want to stick with that whole opponent aspect, that whole Western Conference was tight. So the competition level, for them to make it, they were fighting against people that were just as not as good as them. That it was an aging situation. The teams that didn't make it were the ones that were young. Experience won games in those days, and I want y'all to be mindful of that. Now let's get back to this first championship. The Lakers were aging. MJ was entering his prime. Scottie was coming into his own. Horace Grant was doing his thing. And then there was a bunch of other role players. They had shooters left and right. Craig Hodges, Paxson, BJ Armstrong. They had shooters. Like guys specifically set up so you can drive and dish and they can hit. The Lakers didn't have that. I just want us to stop doing the God complex thing that we do with MJ. We gotta stop it. We have to see flaws in things and let you know, okay, he didn't slay the dragon. He slayed the dragon's grandpa. You just really, and I'm not hating. And the fact of the matter is, I love MJ, but I'm not going to sit here and ignore some stuff just so I could be like, I love MJ, but forget the flaws. Let's talk about that second championship. The Portland Trailblazers, who came out of the West that year. The West was not in a very good position that year. The Phoenix Suns were actually fairly decent. The Lakers hardly made noise. They beat the Lakers, but the Lakers hardly made noise. Who else? The Supersonics they weren't a team yet. They weren't that team yet. So, you had Drexler, Porter, Duckworth, Jerome Kersey, Cliff Robinson. That was the starting lineup, right? That was pretty much it. Their bench, they had no depth. I think they had Ala Abdel Nabi coming off the bench for their big men. It just wasn't. And defensively, as good as Clyde Drexler was offensively, he was suspect on defense. So, of course, you're not going to get somebody who's going to keep Mike at bay. Nobody was keeping Mike at bay during that day. His will to win, his skill set, first of all, let me just be straight up. Mike's skill set was bananas, but his will to win, his will to get the most out of his players was bananas. I've never seen anything like it. The only thing I've seen like that come close was like Ray Lewis, and that was just a whole different level of energy. Mike intimidated his teammates into being better. Ray Lewis inspired his teammates into being better. So there was a kind of a different motivation. Third championship. A lot of this is what most people don't know about that Phoenix Suns series. The Phoenix Suns almost beat them. That sixth game was won by John Paxson hitting a three that he almost didn't get. So let's not sit here and act like Mike was just stomping his way through championships 4-0ing people. He wasn't. 6 games for that Phoenix Suns. They almost won. And I want to say something about almost wins in the MJ days, because you've heard of the Jordan rules. The Pistons had it. They had the Jordan rules. But so did the refs. That's all I'm going to say. If you want to pretend like that didn't exist in that day, that's fine. I'm not looking to take championships away. I'm asking you to look at the things that made those things occur. 6 games, and they won that last game off a 3-pointer by John Paxson, which means they almost lost. They didn't just win, they almost lost, which would have pushed it to 7 games, and I think they would have been back at Phoenix on that one. I think they stayed in Phoenix twice because the playoffs are structured different then. So who knows how that would have went. I'm just saying, let's not pretend Mike was thoring his way through enemies, swirling his hammer around, knocking people out. That's not how it was. He struggled a ton. Then we had the gap. 4th championship was the Utah Jazz, right? Utah Jazz. Now, by that time, Mike had 2 years off. Now, anybody who knows anything about sports, your body age from the wear and tear, like you remember how Kobe looked when he was wrapped up all in the ice looking like he was in a sarcophagus? Like, your body takes a beating. So Mike didn't have those 2 years to get beat up. Scottie Pippen was just coming into his prime because he almost took the Bulls to the finals in that year and a half that Mike was gone. But Tony Kukoc missed the 3. No, did he hit a 3? No, he hit one and he was mad. But they lost that series against the Knicks. So, first one against the Utah Jazz. I think that went 5 games. He destroyed. I'm not gonna lie, they dismantled them. But they just didn't have the athletic. Again, night in, night out. Jeff Hornacek guarding Mike. Come on, Jeff Hornacek guarding Mike. That don't make no sense. Like, they try to switch it up and put somebody else on him. It just didn't work out like that. Like, again, I'm not taking away. Let's look at the championships. Now, the only team I feel that MJ legitimately beat, like destroyed, was the Seattle Supersonics. I think they took it to 6 games too. That team was good. That team could have won the championship. Like, more so than Phoenix. Gary Payton, a legitimate all-time defensive player, was in Mike's grill the whole time. I also want to point out, Shawn Kemp on Rodman was a mismatch because offensively, Rodman couldn't keep up. He had to resort to almost tactics he had to get Shawn Kemp angry and off his game and touch him more than he liked to be touched. But the game was won and lost off Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen took them to that chance, got that ring for them. Albeit he didn't get the MVP. But Scottie Pippen exploited mismatches left and right during that series. So then we get that Utah Jazz one again. An aged Karl Malone, an aged John Stockton, who was unathletic to begin with, an aged Jeff Hornacek, an outmatched, outclassed Byron Russell, Greg Ostertag. I think if you look in the dictionary and there's a synonym for mediocrity, Greg Ostertag's name is there because he was a bum sandwich with cheese. I'm just being honest. So, of those 6 championships, I feel like they could have legitimately lost one, and that was to the Sonics. Although they almost lost to the Phoenix Suns, but I feel like legitimately the Sonics just didn't play up to snuff, and they were kind of intimidated. But I want to make this one last point before I get out of here. Why do we ignore the fact that Mike's first year back, he got dismantled by the Orlando Magic? Why do we ignore that? Exactly. Because we don't like our heroes to have black marks. But they do, and they will. But we have to do that. We have to look at those black marks. Am I saying MJ's not the GOAT? No. I'm just simply asking you, when you start to do the GOAT status measurement, don't forget Bill Russell had 11 and Mike has 6. Don't forget that Mike was beating up on aged teams that couldn't match his athleticism, teams that were where the supporting cast was really the reasons for the wins. Yes, we give Mike a lot of credit. Oh, if they didn't collapse, he couldn't kick it. All right, cool. Let's also not ignore the fact that in the league, there were no 2 guards who could defensively do anything with him. So there really was no challenge for Mike night in, night out. Think about that. I want you to think about that. We can't put our heroes so high that we can't see the blemishes. We only see the glory. We got to be real. So, arguably, is MJ the GOAT if we're doing the whole championships versus not championships? No. Bill Russell has 11. But if we're talking about impact on the game and somebody who took winning to another level and made it look enjoyable and graceful and how we enjoy, yes, he's the GOAT. But what about those 11 championships? Are we going to discuss those? Hit me in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Hit me in the comments. Let me know why that 11 isn't as heavy as that 6. And why if we're going to do that measurement, how come every time LeBron's name gets brought up, we go, Mike has 6. And why do we do that if that's not the criteria? I'm going to say this. Athletically, LeBron is one of the greatest athletes across the sports. Him, Deion, Bo Jackson, that I've ever seen. The greatest basketball player of all time is Michael Jordan. the greatest basketball player of all time is Michael Jordan. And that ends my debate. Wayne Stephen with Next Level Lifestyle.